On 40 Minutes next Thursday on BBC Two at 9:30, Jeremy Irons will present a poem by Heathcote Williams. It's called Autogeddon.
What do you mean I'm drunk? Of course I'm drunk. Only time I concentrate's when I'm drunk. We're on holiday, so shut up and start enjoying yourselves. I can do this bit of the journey in my sleep. You ever feel something's going to happen and then it does? 17 million dead and counting. More than twice the number in the death camps. 18 times the count in Korea. 17 Vietnams. 130 times the kill at Hiroshima. 8,500 Ulsters. The 100 Years' War in a week. The Crusades in under 30 seconds. A humdrum Holocaust. The Third World War that nobody bothered to declare. If the Chinese geomancers were right, and this Earth is a living organism, the atmosphere obviously being its breath, oil could pass for its digestive juices, its cerebrospinal fluid, an essential bile, or even its lifeblood.
Within this elegant and eloquent and sometimes frightening prognosis, there is irrefutable fact, there is conjecture, and there is poetry. But the message seems to be clear. The car is a beast that may well one day consume the earth and all who dwell on it. A terrifying thought. But what would the world be like with no internal combustion engine? Would we let the house burn because there is no fire engine? Would we let our loved ones die because there is no vehicle to get them to the hospital? Would we let an Ethiopian starve because there is no truck to get the food from the port? And would we add 1 million or more to Britain's dole queues because there is no motor industry? There is no definite proof of global warming, and no one can say for sure just what is causing the hole in the ozone layer. But there is an inescapable fact. Cars do destroy people's lives. They do maim and they do kill. Or do they? Isn't it more likely to be the people who drive them? Now, Top Gear will continue to campaign for safer cars, but only you can make safer drivers. Autogeddon, next Thursday, BBC Two, 9:30.
There's something about islands and motorsport that go together. A certain rebelliousness of spirit, perhaps, which means that they escape the control of the authorities on the mainland. We all know about the Isle of Man, but the holiday island of Jersey also has a motorsporting pedigree. Not the largest of places, Jersey has 80,000 people and 80,000 cars squashed onto it. Many of them hire cars with their H number plates, which the locals call horror cars. In spite of all the traffic, the splendid Jersey Motorcycle and Light Car Club, dating back to 1920, organises 50 motorsports events a year. Jersey's most ambitious motorsporting project took place just after the Second World War. While mainland Britain scrabbled around with petrol coupons, Jersey was recovering quickly from the German occupation, and world-class racing drivers of the day were attracted here to St Helier to compete on the promenade.
Jersey was the setting of the first international road race to be held on a British track, and 25 entrants get away to a roaring start, tearing into the first lap of 160 dangerous miles. British, French and Italian drivers jockey for position, with the Siamese colours of Prince Bureau well up among the leaders for the first few laps.
5 road races were held on the fast but somewhat undemanding circuit, but events were curtailed in the 50s after a tragic accident. This 1947 race, however, seemed a very jolly affair.
British hopes are pinned to number 7, the green Maserati, driven by Reg Parnell. And here he comes, flat out, a British winner. A fine performance, and Mrs. Parnell makes it a very happy ending.
One thing there's an abundance of on Jersey is sand, so it's not surprising that many of today's motorsport events are held on it. There's a whole variety of cars and classes, and races seem to be organised at the drop of a hat, or indeed at the drop of the tide. Rallying might come as something of a surprise, but for several years the tracks around the potato fields have echoed to the sound of cars on special stages. There are even nighttime navigation events, though you might wonder how you can get lost on a 5x10 mile island when you've lived there all your life. It's full regalia for the main rallying event, the annual Jersey Rally, where the public roads are closed just like in Corsica or on the Monte Carlo. This is of course all subject to permission being granted by the honorary constables in Jersey's various parishes, who find that most of the residents don't mind rally cars driving over their doorsteps. Occasionally, however, the scenery suffers. But it seems more a case of damaged pride than damaged people. Even for these two unfortunates. Definitely Jersey's biggest event is the Booley Bay Hill Climb, a round of the British National Hill Climb Championship that's held on the island every summer. It's a chance for the locals to show their prowess to the mainlanders. Hill climbing is one of the more bizarre branches of British motorsport. Events are held in various far-flung parts of the British Isles, and having travelled miles to get to the hill in question, you squirt up a narrow lane of about half a mile or so in as few seconds as possible. Bizarre behaviour it may be, but it definitely has its aficionados.
It's a very friendly sport. We don't wear cars out as quick as we do on circuits, for instance. I came from circuit racing into hill climbing, and obviously every weekend you was rebuilding engines, rebuilding gearboxes, the amount of wear and tear. This is a very specialised sport, as you can see, from racing from A to B as quick as you possibly can with whatever's in between. And it needs a lot of precision driving, and I think that's what appeals to me, is the fact is you've got to do a 10/10 run virtually every time, and then improve at the end of the day to do 11/10 run kind of thing.
There's no question that the width of the roads and the speeds of the car and the power and everything else of those engines is absolutely tremendous. I mean, you have to realise that it's like driving a car on a very, very slippery road with huge amounts of power. I mean, if you think about it, you talk about brake horsepower per tonne. I mean, that thing that I was driving has got 600 horsepower in the engine, and the car weighs just over 900 weight. So you're talking about 1,200 or 1,300 brake horse per tonne.
If you must go hill climbing, this is definitely the place to do it. Booley Bay is on the north of the island, and the climb starts down here among the lobster pots and cobbles and rises 500 feet in 1,011 yards. Now, to make life even more comfortable for the competitors, the start line is on the hotel doorstep, so all they had to do was fall out of bed this morning. Joining in the island spirit were the Jersey Highways Department, who duly appeared to paint the start line just in the nick of time. Although there's not a lot of space available, the drivers attempt to warm their tyres for better grip, not least 4 times British champion Martin Griffiths from Worcestershire, to whom we attached the Top Gear camera. Although it's not the fastest or the steepest hill in the championship, it's certainly one of the most challenging, with fast sweeping bends and the odd curve thrown in on the closed public road. The cars are geared for a maximum speed of about 90 miles an hour for this hill. In spite of that, Martin uses only 2 gears, the engine revving up to about 11,000 RPM. The top drivers are allowed 2 practices and 3 timed runs. Positioning on the bends is vital. Take a tight line and you risk clobbering a rock on the inside. But take a wider line and there's an even more threatening outcrop to contend with on the other side. How do you like this hill compared to the others in the championship?
Very much. I mean, the biggest significant difference is it's very much wider, and therefore you've got to think about the lines that you take much more than in a, say, a narrower hill climb like Shelsley Walsh. And I enjoy it very much because it's a thinking hill. I think you notice people going deeper into corners, staying out wider, longer. I think that's the secret to a quick time. I love it. It's very, very nice.
There's a whole assortment of machinery going up the hill, including motorbikes, many of which are ridden by locals. And there are classes for production cars like this Caterham Super Sprint. And when it comes to modified production cars, they don't come much more modified than this squash Skoda. Definitely one of the fastest of its breed. Other folk choose to compete in more conventional racing cars.
Ex-Formula One cars used to be used in hill climbing a lot, but the ideal machines proved to be devices like this Peug, which is virtually a hill climb special, though it does still bear more than a passing resemblance to a Formula One car. This is the car of twice British hill climb champion Roy Lane. It has a 4-litre 4DFL engine, which develops 550 brake horsepower, and with power like that, he can get up this hill in less than 40 seconds.
These large side pods use the airflow to help suck the car onto the road, the so-called ground effect. And this device isn't a handbrake, it cuts the timing beams, which are accurate to hundredths of a second. Not all the equipment is quite so up to date. This phone is German wartime army surplus. They're dotted up and down the hill and can be used in an emergency. This rider got back on and completed the hill. But these two gents on the combination, through a few deft movements, got to the top in 52 seconds. As the day wears on, there's pressure on competitors to beat their previous times. It can be their undoing. The honour of being the fastest Jersey man this year went to Ken Thompson with a time of 45 seconds. 5 seconds slower than Martin Griffiths, who didn't win here, but went on to win the championship later. But overall fastest this year was another Midlander, Ray Rowan, with a time of 39.65 seconds.
With the hill climb over, the roads of Jersey can now return to more normal traffic. And that means those thousands of hire cars and more than a fair sprinkling of exotic and expensive machinery squeezing onto the narrow lanes and harbours. Cheerio!
In next week's Top Gear, the latest machines at the motorcycle show. A report on the dangers facing women alone on the road. And the V8 sports car from one of Britain's independent car makers.